Hey students, this is Wednesday, January 6th, 2021, and we're talking about solving equations for a specific variable to get ready to put it into y equals mx plus b form. So you have this do first, and you have the example here. The next slide walks through the answers, or it gives you the answers for this right side, and this was part of your homework for Tuesday night. So we'll look at both of these and then walk through it. So hopefully you tried this out, but if you're struggling, think about this a couple of ways, right? Some number minus b is 38, and some number plus b is 76. So what's some numbers that are 38 apart from each other? Well, if a was 38, b would have to be 0, right? But if I added those together, I would get 38. So I'm nowhere near 76. All right. So what if I had, b is 58, right? If b is 58, 20 less than that is 20. And we could say, well, that gives me 38 when I subtract them, but if I add them together, I get 78. So I'm really close. And you could go on guessing and checking and doing that, thinking about numbers that are 38 apart from each other, and then what they add together. Another way of doing this is combining equations. And this is how I first thought about this, but you might not have thought about this the first time because you're like, you can do that? We can actually take this top equation and subtract the entire bottom equation. And so you get a minus a is 0a, b minus negative b is 2b, 76 minus 38, well, if I'm going to subtract, right, I need to borrow, so I'm going to borrow 16 minus 8 is 8, and 6 minus 3, oh, well, that's 38. Oh, cool. Okay, so that's half of it. Maybe that helps us. Divide both sides by 2, and we get b equals 19. So now if you know that b is 19, you can find what a is, and then you can find out what's a divided by b. I'll let you do that on your own. No need to solve that riddle for you. What I do want to focus on is the second part of the do first. The answers are on the second slide, but let's walk through this because it's just like your homework questions from yesterday that many of you struggled with. So I want to take a peek at this. We have f of x is 3x plus the absolute value of x, and g of x is x squared minus 1. So if I want to find f at negative 4, we need to substitute in to f of x equals 3 plus x. All right, we get f at negative 4 is 3 plus negative 4. Sorry, that's an absolute value we're plugging into, so let me write that correctly, plus the absolute value of negative 4. In our review yesterday, the absolute value of negative 4 means how many places, or what's the distance from 0. So how far is negative 4 from 0? It is 4 from 0. And so 3 plus 4 is 7. So f at negative 4 equals 7. I'm going to draw a line here so that I can do the next part. And again, you're always supposed to pause these, try them yourself, and then come back and look at the answer. Negative 2, let's plug that in. G of negative 2 equals negative 2 squared minus 1. Notice I put parentheses around the negative 2 because we're not just squaring the 2, we're squaring negative 2. So negative 2 squared is negative 2 times negative 2, or 4, minus 1 gives us 3. So g at negative 2 is 3. Well, part C just says, well, let's take f of negative 4, g at negative 2, add them together. F of negative 4 is 7, g of negative 2 is 3. So we add those together, and our answer for C is 10. All right, questions on that? You should send your teacher an email or a text message and be like, I saw the video, but he's still confusing. So we're going to walk through today's lesson. Again, pause it, go back, refresh it. I'm going to move quickly because I only have a 15-minute record time because I'm cheap and I like the free version of things. So here's our goal today. We're going to solve literal equations, all right, which are equations with more than one variable. Let's go for it. And so here it's saying we want to solve for h. So we're going to circle h. Notice h is being multiplied times b. So how do we undo this? We divide by whatever is happening. So it's h times b. We undo it by dividing by b. Okay? And so we divide both sides by b. And we get a over b equals h. And this is my final equation. Solving for h, we have h equals a times b. So you can go ahead and type that in here. H equals a divided by b. Bonus points, does anybody know what area equals base times height is for? Right, that's the area of a rectangle. And so if we're trying to find the height of a rectangle, we can take the area divided by the base. Submit that so that we know that you are working. All right. Now, this next one, we're going to solve it for w. So go ahead. We're trying to solve for this piece right here. And I like to think through, okay, what's happening to w? Well, w is being multiplied by 2, and it's being added by 2l. Okay? And so the closest thing that's happening is multiplication by 2. Then it's added by 2l. So to undo this, we go backwards. The opposite of adding 2l would be subtracting 2l. The opposite of multiplying by 2 is dividing by 2. And so let me grab a snip of this, and let's go ahead and do those things all at once. And you can walk through the Desmos on your own. So we have 2l plus 2w equals p. Again, if I'm adding 2l, I need to subtract 2l first. Again, you work from farthest away to the closest things happening to our variable. 2l minus 2l is 0. Always is what we want. 2w equals p minus 2l. Then we said, if I'm multiplying by 2, how do I undo it? I divide by 2. So if I divide this side by 2, I need to divide this entire side by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so I'm just left with 1w. P divided by 2 is p over 2. Negative, minus 2l divided by 2. And I can write it like this. You can kind of think about distribution here, right? When we multiply something, if I did 2 times x plus 4, right, we distribute that multiplication of 2, 2x plus 8. That has nothing to do with it. If I'm dividing by 2 here, we're distributing that division, right? I'm dividing the p by 2 and the 2l by 2. And we end up getting p divided by 2. Well, if I have 1p and I divide it by 2, I really have 1/2 p, which is how I like to write it. You can keep it as p over 2, minus 2 divided by 2. That's 1, so I have 1l. Now, this can get confusing because you're like, is that LL? 1L? Remember, we don't need to write 1 of any variable, so we could just write L. And this is your final solution when we're solving for W. And so if you move all the way to slide 18, here's where you finish that off, and you would get W equals 1/2 P minus L. All right. Let's move on to our example 3. And again, always go back and forth. So this is really where we're trying to go here. I'm trying to solve for y, okay? So take a moment, walk through example 3. It's 19, 20, 21, all right? So walk through that, and then we'll come back and we'll walk through the entire process together. So pause, try slides 19, 20, and 21. So how'd you do? Were you able to solve that all the way for y? Hopefully you tried. Let's walk through the steps. So if I'm solving for y, what's happening to y? The first thing that's happening to y is being multiplied by 3. The next thing that's happening is it's being added by 2x. So I'm going to undo these by subtracting by 2x and dividing by 3. All right, so let's do those steps. First, let's subtract both sides by 2x. Minus 2x, minus 2x. And this should eliminate, and we get 3y equals 4 minus 2x. First one done. Then, we're going to divide by 3. Well, if I divide one side by 3, remember we divide the entire other side by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1y. And now I'm going to distribute this division. So 4 divided by 3 minus 2x divided by 3. And frankly, this is solved for y. Now, to make our lives easier in the future, I want to show you a couple more steps. 4 over 3 minus 2x over 3. 4 divided by 3 is a improper fraction 4/3. We can leave it as 4/3. You can think about it as a little bit bigger than 1, right? It's 1 1/3. That's fine. 2x divided by 3, I'm going to rewrite that as 2/3 times x. Okay? And so we have 2/3 times x. This negative sign, though, is attached to it, right? So we need to make sure it's a negative 2/3 times x. Well, what's left over here then is we have plus 4/3. And so I'm going to say y equals negative 2/3 x plus 4/3 for my final answer. And if you don't completely understand that, that's okay. But what we're trying to get to is y equals our slope times x plus our y-intercept, which we called b, if you remember back to earlier this school year. Okay, so let's move on to our next problem. Our last example today, example 4. Now we're going to solve for y, which is right here. And notice, actually, I lied. We're going to solve for x, which is right here. And notice it's kind of in a pickle right now. So I want you to walk through slides 22, 23, and 24 and see how far you can make it on your own. All right, pause it, go for that. How'd you do? All right, so let's walk through this from beginning to end. Again, we're solving for x. So tell me, what's happening to x? X, the first thing that's happening, the closest thing, right, is plus y. And then it's being divided by 4. So can you tell me, how do we undo each of those? Opposite of dividing by 4 is multiplying by 4. And then the opposite of adding y would be subtracting y. So we're going to do things in this order, going backwards, right? Multiply and then subtract. So how do I do this? Well, I need to multiply both sides of this equation by 4. That means everything here gets multiplied by 4. All right? And so when we multiply this entire fraction by 4, I get 4 divided by 4, right? I get 4x plus 4y divided by 4. Because I'm dividing, sorry, so this may be confusing. Let me write it like this. I need to multiply this by 4 to undo the division by 4. So 4 times x divided by 4 is just x. 4 times y divided by 4 is just y. And notice we remove that fraction dividing by 4, however you want to look at it. And then 4 times z is 4z. I write mine with a little line, otherwise they look like 2's. Now we multiply by 4. Let's subtract our y, and we get 4z minus y is equal to x. And that is our solution. A lot of people like to write it x equals, if this is what we're solving for, 4z minus y, and that's fine too. These equations are all the same, and there you are. Questions? Go ahead and text or email your teacher. Bring that question up tomorrow. All right? So let's pause and finish this up. You can self-check on slide 26 and then finish your exit ticket on 28. Have a great day.